when we started with the group home development, when I started here in '76, the movement to group homes was fairly new in Indiana. It had come to us from Sweden and overseas, and was starting throughout the United States. And you had two populations of people. You had people who lived in the state institutions, and you had people who lived at home. And living here in Fort Wayne and having the Fort Wayne State Developmental Center in our backyard, we were concerned about both groups. There were, when I started in Allen County, there were something like 2,500 individuals living in the Fort Wayne State Developmental Center. We went to Indianapolis and said, let's do a pilot project. And so we were a part of the pilot project, and I think we had approval for 10 homes, 8 homes the first couple of years, and those really kicked off and worked out very well. People were happier, families were happy for the most part, and the people coming out of the state institutions came out, and having lived where they lived, it took them a year or a year and a half to get acclimated to being more free, not having the regimen that they would in the developmental center. And so quite often when they moved into the group home, you know, in a short period of time, you would see people who had what were identified in the institution, severe behaviors or problems, couldn't get along with so-and-so or whatever, just become very open. I mean, just, it was night and day. Some of the early challenges that we had with opening group homes was the regulations of the communities, and they had zoning practices, and they would fight the fact that you were going to have 4, 6, or 8 people living together who were not married. And we had to work against that for several years, and as a result of some of that, we went to state legislature, we went to the national on political basis, and parents talked to legislators, and at both levels we got legislation that took care of those zoning issues, which made it much easier for us to get group homes in any neighborhood. But in the early days, and we opened up, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 before the easier road became possible, and we would have to meet with neighborhood associations and get them to buy into signing off on allowing us to build a group home or to buy a home and turn it into a group home in a neighborhood. And one of the most effective challenges that we ever had from a neighborhood is we set up a meeting, we'd identified a house, we wanted to buy it on the northeast side of town, and we made an appointment to meet with the neighborhood association, planned to do it at a little restaurant that had a back room so that we could have coffee and tea and that kind of thing. And their attorney just said to them, well, one of the most effective ways for you to fight this is just don't show up. And not a soul came. And we couldn't change an attitude. And consequently, we didn't buy that house. We could have fought it, but I made the decision that I didn't want to go into the neighborhood where those attitudes were so prevalent that it would be a problem forever. The majority of the time, if we met with a neighborhood association, we talked about what we were doing, we talked and answered the questions about property values. We answered the questions about what if and do we have to worry about just crazy things that they had in their minds. That I got a call from a neighborhood association, and it happened to be a gentleman that worked at the Fort Wayne National Bank that I knew, and he was saying, Steve, he said, you know, just 3 houses down the road, there's a Cadillac that sits in a driveway. And I said, well, I think that's really important because I've got a new van that's going to be sitting there, and I don't want to be in a sloppy neighborhood. and he just he didn't quite know how to respond, and I didn't get mad. I didn't. I just said, that's really great. We want that kind of neighborhood.